late June of this year, I made the amazingly smart decision to purchase a new phone on contract, being the iPhone X, and 3 months later, Apple released the XS and XS Max. Do I regret my decision, and more importantly, should you bother paying £650 for a new one in 2018 going into 2019? Hey guys, my name is Ryan Thomas with Failtech, and this is the iPhone X in 2018 and beyond. I want to first talk about the design and build to start with, because it's more than just a premium glass sandwich. This is the perfect form factor for me. It's slightly larger than the iPhone 6 or Galaxy S7, which are excellent sizes for me personally, but with a significantly larger display due to the taller panel filling the front of the device, and that's something you don't get in many other phones. The notch that houses that array of sensors and cameras is something that I don't mind. I actually prefer most notches to be kind of longer and shallower. The glass back, as fragile as it is, does look stunning in white in my opinion. I really like the white and black like panda stormtrooper look, and the contrast between the camera bump and the back just looks fantastic in my opinion. It's cold to the touch in the morning and weighty, giving this illusion of class and sophistication that in my opinion you just cannot do with metal. It fits in the hand so well and makes holding it feel like you're royalty. And this thing is IP67 rated, meaning that you have that protection should you find yourself in a sticky situation. The rounded and polished stainless steel sides pick up micro scratches like nobody's business, even with a case on the thing every day since picking it up, and that really sucks honestly. The buttons are still clicky, toggle still crisp, and lightning charge port can still hold the phone's weight. The glass back hasn't smashed yet, and hopefully it won't, because whilst I have had a case on it since getting it, I continue to keep a case on it, and I like switching them up. It's kind of nice to get a different refreshing feel and look to your smartphone every week or so. iPhones for the past few years have been the kings of the system on a chip game, and this one was absolutely no exception when it came out, and is still a fantastic performer to this day. The Apple A11 Bionic is several months to a year old now, but still performs like a champ with its 6-core CPU and 3-core GPU. It's also got 3GB of RAM, and my version is the 64GB model, which has been more than enough for my needs. The day-to-day performance of this phone is fantastic. I've yet to experience a crash, and fluency in both first-party and third-party apps is astonishing, even almost a year down the line. RAM management isn't as great as other devices, and that is something to watch out for, but running any game on the App Store and heavily multitasking are a breeze on this device. Most phones would at least slow down a little bit, but this one just feels like it's faster than when it came out of the box. Even the likes of Snapchat and Instagram run like a dream on this phone, and I have had plenty of problems with those applications in the past on Android smartphones, so this is rather refreshing to see on a slightly older device. And can we take a minute to appreciate the fact that this phone, this iPhone X, is meant to be outdated at just over 9 months old? iOS 12 has completely transformed how this phone performs. Under iOS 11, I'd have to say that it wasn't buttery smooth, and that there were some crashes and there were definitely some bugs in the software, but iOS 12 is fantastic. Group notifications, better multitasking system, and more utilized control center are all things that we as iPhone X users wanted, and Apple listened. The gesture-based navigation is perfect, and going back to a button-based feels like traveling back in time a decade or so. It just came so natural to me when I started using it, and I find it really natural to use every day. iOS has served me well, even as someone who doesn't have a Mac, and during the process of reviewing this phone, I did swap from macOS to Windows. I don't really care about the ecosystem. I know a lot of people talk about it, but it gets a lot of unwanted hype in my opinion, because there's not really much point to it. I don't use iMessage and I don't use AirDrop. Face ID, the controversial unlock method, is so much faster and reliable under iOS 12. I would still have preferred a fingerprint scanner, but Face ID is super useful in a lot of situations. A lot. It's not perfect, and I do miss Touch ID sometimes, but in an ideal world, I'd love to have kind of 2 versions, kind of like a hybrid. Now, let's talk about that astonishing display. The glorious 5.8-inch WFHD Super AMOLED Samsung panel that exudes brilliance. It's not as technically excellent as the Note 8 or 9, but has an incredibly well calibrated out-of-the-box colour set and stunning sharpness. Samsung and Apple just made one of the best all-round displays in my opinion. Teamwork at its absolute finest. The rounded corners are something to get used to, but the reason that this phone fits me more than any other are the screen to body ratio and aspect ratios, 82.9% and 19.5 by 9. The fact that this phone with a larger display than the Nexus 6P can be dwarfed by such a device is why this phone fits me. I love smaller smartphones that come in a smaller footprint, and having something with just such a larger screen is perfect to me. It's like a dream come true. Now, back to objectively reviewing the panel. Sharpness is excellent, colours are excellent, though the display does give off this slight blue light off axis, which is not so excellent. It's not as extreme as the first batch of Pixel 2 XLs, but it's not great if you really stare at your phone off axis, which a lot of people don't really do. The notch is well used in iOS, with the majority of apps conforming to it, and I found it heaps better than the experience that I've had with Android notches, pre-Android Pie that is. The consistently small bezels around the edges aren't the thinnest, but that consistency counts and makes this thing a cut above the rest in terms of aesthetics in my personal opinion. The 3D Touch digitizer is useful to have in a lot of cases, and I use it more than the Edge features on Samsung, but it's not essential to have, and I know a lot of people in the real world who will never use their 3D Touch enabled device as a 3D Touch enabled device. I have to say, I've actually started watching more video on my phone thanks to the speakers in this setup. The excellent display is great, and the great set of speakers have transformed how I use my phone. Remember, I'm coming from a 2-year-old outdated device here with a tinny bottom firing unit. Audio is clear and loud and makes binging Leon Lush before going to bed a lot more enjoyable now that I don't need to use headphones. Jokes about the omission of a headphone jack incoming. And we really do have to talk about the cameras on this thing. Oddly enough, I'm going to start with the selfie shooter, and we have to start by talking numbers. 7 megapixels, f2.2 glass, and 1080p video. On paper, these are pretty meh specs, and I have to agree with that, but the images and videos coming from this thing really aren't bad at all. Plenty sharp, if a little lacking in dynamic range, and selfie portraits, whilst not anywhere near the league of Pixel 2, have come on leaps and bounds in updates over the months with iOS 12. We saw the biggest improvement in accuracy and edge detection here. Selfie video lacks some image detail, and the smoothness of electronic image stabilization isn't going to match that of the new XS or Samsung's great selfie video, but it's usable for vlogs and what I use for my Patreon exclusives videos, so check those out if you haven't already. And moving on to that rear camera, we have a fantastic pair of 12 megapixel sensors, one being f1.8 at a standard focal length and the other being f2.4 at a more tele 50mm focal length. They're housed in the camera hump with a decent quality flash and produce some great photos and videos. The OIS on both cameras is renowned as one of the best in the business, and the UHD video is some of the smoothest purely because of the stabilization. Talking of the UHD video, the UHD 60p is nice to have, but I shoot in 24, so I really have no use for the 60p. But what I do appreciate is the 1080p at 240 FPS. That's 10 times slow motion for my workflow, and that is just stunning. The quality is obviously degraded quite a bit, and you'll want to be in a brighter environment as that shutter speed really has to come up to account for the higher frame rate. The slow motion is honestly awesome, and at 1080, it's got to be some of the highest quality going too, but just not quite at Sony's level. The photos from this device are really good. Not quite as good as the XS, P20 Pro or Pixel 2, or even Samsung's Note 9, but still very good. Dynamic range is there as long as you have HDR enabled, and I found the images from the great outdoors looked really good. Lots of detail, sharpness and rich colours, although Apple's colour science when it comes to white balance is a bit lacking compared to the competition. The telephoto lens is slightly softer and isn't used 90% of the time, even in telephoto mode, as in certain light the software will pick the main lens and just digitally zoom to correct itself, and it kind of makes the second lens redundant in a way. That said, portrait mode really surprised me. I was expecting utter horse excrement. Now to be clear, it's not amazing, it fails 60% of the time for me, but when it does work, it's better than I expected. Even the selfie portrait mode isn't bad. Of course you are going to need a lot of patience and good light, but when you eventually get some of the cool shots with it, they are really impressive for a phone that is routinely hated for being awful for its photos. It's not awful, it's just got a lot of competition, and in the case of the XS, it has been much improved on in further iterations. I have to talk about battery life because over time iPhones seem to get the brunt of the hate and seem to be hit by battery life degradation the worst. I found that whilst it wasn't the best battery life in the world, the 2716 mAh battery gets me through a full entire day. I use Bluetooth connected to my headphones for about an hour and a band all day, so I'm not going light on this thing. Screen on time is fairly high for an iPhone in my opinion, Unfortunately, I haven't got a chance to fast charge the device because it doesn't come with a fast charger in the box, although I have tried wireless charging and that is really convenient, super useful. This is actually the first phone I've ever used with wireless charging, fun fact, and it's really cool. It also means that that glass back isn't made for purely aesthetic reasons, and actually for the first 2 weeks of using this device, I only used wireless charging. I mentioned connectivity roughly there, and it's kind of a hit and miss. Yes, we have the lightning port and a good Bluetooth connection, but no headphone jack. I personally don't care because I use wired headphones, but it's a really big deal to a lot of people. At least we get a dongle in the box, unlike the new offerings. The Wi-Fi connectivity has been best in class for me ever since getting the thing, with a constant 200 by 50 or better on my 300 by 50 connection, and that's with the AC 5 GHz radios, better than all other phones in my testing. The 4G radios aren't bad either. I tested them in several different conditions, and I have to say that they're not so bad. There weren't any dropouts compared to the XS, and certainly good enough for browsing, but sometimes even good enough for uploading these videos. And since I have a 50 gig data plan, I often skip friends and family's Wi-Fi connections for the faster 4G offerings here. In conclusion, let's jump back to the main question. Should you still buy the iPhone X in 2018? For £650, this phone is a steal. I mean, with this hardware, this software, this cohesion, and the way it's all compacted into a phone not much larger than an iPhone 6S, it has to be one of the best you can buy, and that's not bad for £650. If you find it for less than that on a really good deal, you are in for a treat, and you're getting one of the best smartphones to come out in the past year. It's not going to fit everyone's needs, and Android fanboys will continue to complain about iOS, but what it will do is stay in my pocket for the next year without a question. Anyway, that's been it from me, guys. Please do like, dislike, comment, subscribe for any idea to never miss a video like this one. I really enjoyed making this video, so hopefully you enjoyed it too. Please do check out my Patreon, my Discord, and my social media. Links will all be in the video description. And I want to thank my patrons for your amazing support. You guys have been incredible, and I thank every single one of you for helping me on this journey. Again, I've been Ryan Thomas with Failtech. This has been the iPhone X in 2018, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.